So you're not invoking the aid of government? No, the magistrate in Wajir can't tell people because he's in government, he's part of the system?
No, we'll deal with ourselves as the membership itself.
Right, so yes. Magistrates and people aren't members of the Law Society of Kenya?
No, they're not within our bracket.
Right, yes, okay. Yes. So then we go back to the V word that you'd used earlier, the word vetting.
Yes.
Vetting of judges in particular, this big story saga there about some judges being sacked. Now you again, Mr. Mutua, have been very, very vocal in attacking the Mr. Mutunga, for example, and saying he should get rid of these baddies. I go back. What are you doing to sanction the baddies within the Law Society themselves? I'm saying that lawyers are complicit in corrupt dealings. It takes two to tango, is the English expression.
I've just said that, one, we've been in the forefront to say that this vetting exercise must be done properly. That
I always take the issue with this idea of people using the pronoun we, because it has a grouping that is very, very amorphous and is invisible.
When I say
we, who's we?
When I say we, I don't want to say. You see our parade. Let me explain this.
Yes.
When I say we, I mean that the Law Society is managed by a council of 11 persons, chaired by myself. That's the chairman of the Law Society. So I do not do this as Eric Mutua. In fact, as a result of that perception, people have attacked me in my person, saying that Eric Mutua, the chairman of the Law Society, is the one who is attacking judges and is the one who says that judges need to be vetted and that the vetting exercise must go. They have used that. But it is not me, it is we, because it is the council. It is a board which sits and says this is the policy direction. So that is I'm using we. But I'm not scared of using I. At some point when I have to take some initiative personally, then I'll use I myself.
So you're trying to say to me
yes.
that lawyers, once again, in this idea of court cases coming up, that lawyers are not part of the process that leads to corrupt judges.
I've not said that, and I wouldn't even say that.
But I'm trying to suggest that you should.
I'm
trying to suggest that you should, because I will give you this biro, so to speak, so that you can do something for my client. That's how the judge becomes corrupt, because I'm trying to suggest who communicates to the judge what's in it for him if this case disappears. If we're sort of doing a Hollywood movie or a Kenyawood movie yes. for now, since we're Kenyans, yes.
How
would I shoot that particular scene?
I'll tell you
and
this.
The film is called The Corrupt Judge.
I'll tell you this. There are some elements.
Remember The Corrupt Judge?
Of course.
How will it be proved? Yes, the movie.
In that movie, we'll of course have some lawyers who are not forthright. We have some lawyers who misconduct themselves, who are involved in corruption, and we know those lawyers. In fact, to be specific on what you've said, we as chairman and we as counsel of the Law Society, we are tinkering with the idea of publishing or shaming some of the lawyers, whom we may not have direct evidence, but we know they have been involved in certain scandals involving the judiciary. We are going into that.
What we do read is that the lawyer, the judge who receives the bribe is probably in a hotel somewhere parking his car, and somebody very judiciously dumps a suitcase full of $1,000 bills. And I'm still asking in the movie, who puts the bills in the suitcase?
It's not necessarily the lawyer. In fact, when you look at that scenario,
so you're trying to suggest that the client,
yes.
it'll be a direct action from client to the judge.
Yes, sometimes it is. In fact, rarely the lawyer will do that, but sometimes it is the lawyer who.
So when the client goes to court, he goes there securely in the knowledge. Since the lawyer is unaware of what's been happening in the interim. He knows that he's going to be scot-free. So you're reading your chapters and your papers to go through due process, and in the meantime, your rich client who's brought in a consignment of cocaine or a year's supply of elephant tusks is going off scot-free. I don't think this movie is going to run to day in, day out to the Kenyan public. They won't believe that.
Well, they may not believe that, but I'm saying that occasionally you'll find a lawyer involved, but the lawyers probably do not directly get involved in the corruption, but there would be the link between the judge and the client. But the client most of the times is the one who does the actual giving out of the bribe. Yes.
One last area, perhaps, to the elections again, because they're at the forefront of our minds.
Yes.
There's this whole idea, because again, the public perception of a lawyer, this incredible legal analytical mind who can sift through sort of woolly thinking and come to a conclusion. Looking at what you see from afar, all this business about timelines, the Constitution, in a legal way, do you see us having a president by the maximum period given for Mwai Kibaki to officially leave office? Well, given all the imponderables that could happen about due process, because you've been a great apologist for due process.
Well, that now will be determined by the outcome of vote. If we have a clear winner, then we'll have a president. If we don't have a clear winner, then again we'll have to extend because of timelines. We are not going to have. We're not going to have by probably April. We're not going to have a president because we'll have to go through probably a petition, if there's a petition which has been filed. You heard what the regulations which were published the other day by the judiciary. If there's a petition which has been filed, then we have moved the dates by another 30 days so that we can have the petition determined on the dispute as to who has won in the presidential elections.
But this always works on the premise that it is this idea of a two-horse race, that people are working on the premise that if it's between me and you. So are all these sort of other candidates that they ought to leave town because they haven't got because we know these proverbial horses, we know where the two-horse race is. So you know what I'm saying?
I know what I'm saying.
You're saying there's only going to be one petition. Why not 3? Why not 4?
Well, you see, even if there are 2 or 3 or 4, but the timelines are there. The petition must be concluded within the timelines. So even if you file 4 or 2 or 1, they all have to be disposed of within that time frame. So that is why I'm begging.
I'm trying to say, Mr. Mutua, with respect, I don't believe you. I don't believe that this can happen in a mythical time frame that doesn't take. We know that there are so many cases before the Kenyan courts. It will take 5 years to clear them.
No, it will happen. Let me tell you, it's going to happen because one, the judiciary has put in place mechanism where they are ready, they are prepared for these petitions in event they come. Right. And secondly, remember it is anchored in the Constitution. They cannot go past those timelines.
There have been lots of things that have been anchored in the Constitution that haven't happened in the way the anchor says.
I do not think. I remember what the regulations now say is that we can listen to your arguments as the judiciary. We listen to what you've said. We listen to your petition. We do not have to physically go and write the decision, but we can tell you, based on what you have said, your petition succeeds or it fails. We'll give you the results after 2 months.
Mr. Mutua, why hasn't the Law Society of Kenya come out categorically in condemnation with the international community against certain candidates being unfit to run for the presidency, given the constraints that would put on Kenyan society if they were to become president?
What the Law Society has done is to say firmly that we support the ICC process. However, we have been restricted from categorically debating this issue of whether or not these candidates these candidates who have cases at the ICC are fit to run, because remember there was a case which was in court and we couldn't go to the merits of whether or not they could run. We couldn't make pronouncements as to whether they can run or not. Currently there's another case which has been filed, which was filed in December, which again deals with the question as to whether these candidates can run or not. When you have a case, well, we have cases like that going on in court. As the Law Society of Kenya, as a body which deals with the rule of law, it is very difficult for us to say this candidate does not meet the requirements because of that issue. However, if this case is to be disposed of tomorrow, I'll be the first one with my counsel to make a determination and tell the country that we have looked at the law, we have looked at the interpretation, and we think that this candidate can or cannot run.
Mr. Mutua, 30 seconds, tell the country, what would be your plea as the chairman of the Law Society of Kenya to the people of Kenya in the build-up to March the 4th, in 30 seconds?
First is to have a peaceful election, no fights. Secondly is to make sure that they look at the candidates and look at his leadership qualities, whether he fits the bill under the leadership and integrity provisions in the Constitution.
Eric Mutua, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.